and I'm a retired certified industrial hygienist. So I spent most of my career working for large global engineering firms and basically doing health and safety for all kinds of projects around the globe. So a lot of chemicals, a lot of pharmaceuticals. I was also a consultant. Environmental is my background with a focus on health.
That's wonderful, Kathy. Andrea, will you introduce yourself? You're on mute.
I am on mute. Sorry about that. My name is Andrea Sharb, and I serve on the steering committee of Beyond Plastics Virtual Group, and I also run a small group here in Cleveland. TME, I guess your Fairview Park is next door to Cleveland, Ohio, and we're Sustainable Edgewater.
Carol, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Carol Etheridge. I'm sorry, I didn't get to hear anybody else's because I just connected to audio. So I am part of Save Carbon County, and we are a 501c4 organization, and we are very focused on water quality and some of the uses of sewage sludge in our local area on farm and land.
Wonderful. Thank you, Carol. And Ginny, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, sorry I'm a few minutes late joining. My name is Ginny. I live in the Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, and I was formerly a member of my town's environmental steering committee. No longer, but I'm just here, to learn because.
Great, thank you. And Loretta, you want to introduce yourself again so the recording can capture you. And you guys, the recording is on. Please introduce yourselves in the chat, make connections, because we're here to network and help each other out. And if you're not comfortable doing it in the chat, you can do it just to me, so I have your contact information and any questions as well. So go ahead, Loretta, tell us about yourself.
Okay, it's Loretta Ryland. The Corrections Planning Board, that's where I'm working. That's my job, but I happen to be at work. But I'm here as the chair of the Fairview Park Green Team. Fairview Park is in Ohio, Northeast Ohio. And also as a member of the Green Team Leadership Coalition. It's a newly formed coalition in Cuyahoga County where all different people from different green teams come together to see how we can help each other further our causes. In fact, Andrea, I'm going to email you about that. Yeah, so that's that.
Wonderful. And Kathy, you've been so patient as these people have come in. You've gotten bumped down. Introduce yourself, Kathy.
Yeah, I have done mostly hands-on work in terms of reestablishing and better environments, a lot of planting trees, working on invasives, those kind of things with plants and trees and birds and things like that. A lot of bird banding and lights out Cleveland. So that's been my background mostly. I just retired and I don't have any background at all or even any drive or understanding of how you guys do what you do on the planning and the advocacy side. And I want to see if I can fit into that somehow. I don't know. I did do some work some years ago against pesticides in my city and failed at what I tried to do because the city council didn't go with it. But after that, that's about the only major thing I tried to do with help from an anti-pesticide person. So I'm just seeing if I don't have a strong background at all and the kind of administrative things and planning that you do, and I'm just seeing, trying to learn about it.
Well, Kathy, I am so glad actually you went last. And I am so glad you just said what you said, because I must tell you, I'm on board with you. This is my first effort to attempt to engage civic action with my local municipality and government. And I will tell you that I went to my local borough meeting, gave the 10-minute presentation that you guys will be getting, the PowerPoint slides as well as the recording. And from that, they declared that they would test their drinking water. Since then, about 6-8 months have passed, I lose track of time, and they have tested their water twice. And it did come up with levels higher than the new EPA regulations and around the levels that the Pennsylvania Borough of Safe Drinking Water, DEP, is proposing for Pennsylvania. So those levels are, of course, too high. They're calling in an engineer, and we're going to see about, what their next steps are. So with that said, you guys are, kind of the first that I'm leading to engage with municipalities to take this action. And so I'm sure we're going to find that we're going to run into barriers, difficulties, and things that we need to adjust and work around and to update the toolkit with for the subsequent people. But I do hope, based on me trudging forward to doing this, that at least I have us a good starting point, and we can work around any barriers that that occur. So you just joined us. If you want to briefly introduce yourself, and then we've got to get started. Lois, you might be driving. I don't want you to take yourself off mute and get in a car wreck if you are.
I'm sorry, I'm not driving. I just have terrible internet, but that's okay. This is Lois Bauer Bjornson, and I am Southwestern Pennsylvania Field Organizer with Clean Air Council, and I host Frac Land Tours. So I live in the most heavily frac county of our state, in Pennsylvania, Washington County. So I work on fracking issues and petrochemical issues and a whole bunch of other things. But thank you so much.
Okay, wonderful. So just could I have a show of hands for anyone who did not attend the one Zoom session for the part 1, or do the recording? Okay, so you have. Okay, so there's 3 of you. So let me ask the group this. Do you guys mind if I do the 10-minute PowerPoint presentation for these 3 individuals to update you? And then that way you can also see kind of what it's like. And then you can, suggest changes or recommendations. Also, I don't know if it's 10 minutes yet because I just made it. And, so we'll see how close we get. All right, so perfect. So I'm going to screen share. We're going to start off there. That way we get on kind of a little bit more of the same playing field here. I'm Tamala Trussell, founder and education consultant for Move Past Plastic, an organization about a year old. So you are here this evening for part 2 of our PFAS initiative, where we want to become civic action minded and reach out to our communities to ask them to test their drinking and their wastewater for PFAS. And so we have numerous partners and that we're working on this issue with, and there are many others as well. But these are ones that I work with on a continual basis for a lot of initiatives that we do. So our objective, as I said, is to educate the public, municipal leaders, and organizations about the hazards of PFAS and why it's important for us to push our municipalities to test their waste and drinking water. And to collect that data, get it mapped so that everybody can use it, and so that it can help provide our organizations like EPA, DEP with extra data that they need to help make decisions that can help us all keep safe. So there are over 144 recognized hazardous chemicals, according to the Nordic Council of Ministers. I believe they did that in 2019. But there are over 2,400 chemicals that are considered potentially hazardous from plastic, out of about 10,000 that are used to create plastics. PFAS are not considered hazardous currently. Some states have made them hazardous, but the EPA has not yet. However, they do have a health advisory for PFAS. So what is a PFAS? A PFAS is a per and polyfluoroalkyl substance made up of carbon and a fluorine bond. It was created around 1930 by 3M and then later by DuPont to coat and protect materials from heat, oil, and water. So those are very wonderful, useful attributes that we need on our products. However, because of this very strong chlorine-fluorine bond, and because these chemicals have been made for decades, they persist in our environment. And they are everywhere. There are arguably 9,000 to 10,000 different types of PFAS in the class of PFAS. And they are accumulating in our food chain because they have become a part of our air, water, and soils. And they are, in fact, a part of our water cycle. And then so they're transient and they move and they'll get into, like I said, our life cycles and concentrate and bioaccumulate. So where do we find PFAS being used? Predominantly in the oil and gas industry, in the fracking industry. Think about all the heat, oil, and water that they need to resist to do their fracking. Now, although waste management is not a source for PFAS, but rather a sink, you can find a lot of PFAS in waste management. Like I said, it's heavy in metal coating, chemical manufacturing, plastic resins. It's heavily used in, as well as electronics and mining and printing. Once again, airports are not a source, but they're a location, along with military bases where you can find them heavily. And that is because of the use of aqueous firefighting foam. Some of the products that you can find and be exposed to PFAS are common everyday products, such as these on the screen. Others include archival paper, waterproof lipstick and mascara. They're used heavily in our food packaging and takeout packaging. So they're all around us. They're used in tires and carpets. So we've talked about now our sources and a little bit about our sinks. So what happens with all these materials with PFAS is they get collected, end up in a landfill, and landfills with the rain and the compaction over time makes a sludge called leachate, and that will be full of PFAS and other heavy metals and harmful chemicals. They extract that, bring that to a wastewater treatment plant, and that becomes part of the biosludge that gets spread on a farm field. And so you'll see that cycle of bioaccumulation occurring. There are numerous health risks. The largest epidemiological study ever to occur in 2000 with a lawsuit against formerly DuPont, now Chemours, was done. 69,000 individuals to make these health connections. These were animal studies that show a connection between liver, testicular, pancreatic cancers, mammary gland tumors, altered breast development, depressed immunotoxicity, and changes in serum lipids, or otherwise think of cholesterol. But there are numerous human studies as well that show an increase in thyroid disease, those cholesterol levels. The vaccines aren't as effective because of them. You get decreased fertility in women and high blood pressure, preeclampsia, low infant birth weight. There are numerous other correlations and for other health risks, from intellectual development, growth, damaging of the eyes, and many more. It's very hard to get a causation because just like microplastics are present everywhere and are part of our water cycle and in everything, so are PFAS, right? So how do you get that control group that doesn't have those? It's a little bit difficult. So what is our government doing? Well, prior to 2016, they had a health advisory, which is not a regulation that's enforceable, of 400 parts per trillion. In 2016, they lowered it to 70 parts per trillion. And just recently, about a month ago, they have lowered it to what is considered non-detect. Now, what is a part per trillion? A part per trillion is like a quarter of the size or less of a grain of salt in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. That is extremely infinitesimally small amount. More than that is hazardous. And this was acknowledged by the Environmental Working Group that just anything above 1 part per trillion is harmful. So now we finally have the EPA on board with that. And in a month or two, they'll be setting what's called maximum contamination level goals. So the goal is like, if the world was just wonderful and we could do whatever we want, this is what it should be. But then when they do their cost benefit analysis, things get readjusted to make a maximum contamination level. And that's where things will change. And we might not get these wonderful non-detect numbers implemented. So it's very important for municipalities to test their drinking and their wastewater for these harmful chemicals, because the Biden administration has set aside $10 billion for PFAS monitoring, testing, and cleanup. And that opens up the window for that, for those funds and grants in 2023 through 2025. So you want your municipality to have this initial information so they know if they need to be seeking these grants. There are a number of other funds available for testing for these PFAS chemicals as well that we can, that municipalities can access. So I know a lot of municipalities, townships, they are on a very tight budget. That said, for about $1,200, you should be able to test your drinking water. So it's not exorbitant, but it is an amount, and it should be done at least quarterly, because PFAS are transient, and weather factors and other factors can change the fluctuation of the reading of the PFAS levels. So currently, 11 states have PFAS maximum contamination levels, and some of them have set them at and around that non-detect level, which is considered 1 to 6 for some PFAS. Some states have regulations for, I think it was either 4 or up to 6 different PFAS, but that's so few out of, 9 to 10,000. Currently, the DEP should put through, hopefully before the end of the year, or definitely as soon as the year we enter 2023, that they have accepted. It's in the last phase right now for 14 parts per trillion for PFOA and 18 for PFOS. And you could see, what they found out of the sites that they tested for. About a fourth of the sites they tested did have the PFOS and PFOA, as well as, I think there were 8 other PFAS that were detected. So this is a map by EWG that shows the potential contamination and as well as over 120,000 facilities that can expose people. There are some other maps as well. One thing that map and other maps don't include are those sinks for sources of PFAS, which are landfills. So that's something to look into and to know where your landfills are at in your county. This is another resource that shows possible sources for PFAS. Remember, these maps, they do have where they tell you if PFAS have been detected and at what levels, but they also tell you what are some potential sources. So we don't know because they're either the testing has happened and hasn't been disclosed, or it hasn't happened. But these sources are industry, military bases, wastewater treatment plants, and airports where PFAS are used. And so this is my area here. So you can see this map is including those military bases and industry, airports, and wastewater. Once again, it's not including the landfills. And also these maps, this is a current industry here that works with electronics. And so once again, PFAS are heavily used in there. We're not saying this is a contamination site, but it uses PFAS and it could be. So we don't know. But the other thing to bear in mind is legacy industry and landfills. So we had a legacy industry for Carlisle tire and rubber. And because of that, we had 4 landfills that are legacy landfills where they were dumping these products and other products. And currently you can see this was a part of Carlisle, but now is another township. And so that's something to be mindful of. So this landfill is seeping out leachate into this primary stream, which runs into the Connedaguinet Creek, which is where our township and many townships and boroughs along the creek draw their drinking water from. And this has not been tested, but I can guarantee you, because of what was dumped there, the tires and the carpets, there's PFAS contamination in that, as well as other contaminants. So this creek just represents one of many unknown creeks. So when you look at your watershed maps and creeks, bear in mind that those are not mapping all the creeks and streams that are out there. And so it's important to know that there might be others out there. And I call this Ferus monaris Creek because of the iron oxidizing bacteria in it. So it's important for municipalities to test their drinking water because, first off, they are responsible for delivering safe drinking water and making sure the wastewater effluent that exits back into the creek, in our case, is safe and not contaminating the environment and the drinking water for the next township downstream. PFAS are also pervasive and found everywhere, and they bioaccumulate. Drinking and wastewater are not sources, but they are sinks for PFAS and therefore should be tested. The EPA has set a health advisory for non-detect, and there will be regulations up the pipeline occurring around the end of 2024, beginning of 25. But currently there's a non-detect limit that's recommended. Also, it's important to know of these problems because it does pose great health and environmental risks. And PFAS cannot be removed through the normal cleaning processes of drinking and wastewater. And also, finally, you want to have your municipality be able to access the funds before they run out. All right, so that presentation is the 10-minute presentation and PowerPoint slides that you will be provided. In part one, I have a longer presentation that goes into some other more important details for your educational benefit. So that definitely might need to be a little shrinked. That is, I just made that PowerPoint slide and that took about 14 minutes. So it's a little long. So I did expound for your purposes. So we need to shave off 4 minutes from that presentation. So I will be planning on going back through that and having that for you and available to you. If you have some recommendations, please let me know. And we will work on that. So now I want to take you over to the toolkit. And while I'm loading this up, does anybody have any questions or comments that they would like to add for that section?
Are you recommending that anybody in any municipality recommend that their water get tested, et cetera?
Yes, yes, and that's what this PFAS part 1 and 2 is for, is because we are trying to encourage civic action for you and people to go and ask their municipality to test their drinking and their wastewater.
Can it be done at the county level?
No, and we'll get into that in a minute. You can see, like, my county, for example, I believe has 109 separate water providers, and we are in a small county. So yes, exactly. So it has to be done on a township municipal level, and or even as you'll see, there will be a single business that's drawing water, and they would have to test separately, and they might be in a municipality. Any other questions? Oh, just real quick, can you guys tell me if you attended part 1? Because that's going to change a little bit what information I'm giving you. Let me know if you didn't attend part 1 or didn't do the video recording.
I did not.
Okay. Anybody else?
I didn't realize there were 2 parts. This is my first time.
Okay, great. So it's just good for me to know that. So know that there is a part 1 and I have it recorded, but I am giving these presentations every month. So next month it will be on the week of the 23rd. I haven't put dates yet because I'm hoping to have a guest speaker. I am adding a 3rd part to this series that's just meant for the common everyday resident, business person, or municipal leader that's pretty ignorant on plastics, PFAS, fracking, etc. Okay. I have been getting, and you may be just a regular resident too, and I hope you know that this is very understandable for you, but I'm going to make another one that's specific to how do you protect yourself from harmful chemical exposures from plastics, and PFAS are one of them. So look for that as well. So this toolkit here is a toolkit that you will get from me when you fill out a survey that I have. And the survey is to help me know what my reach is and how I can support you better. Look for that survey. You will get this toolkit, which will link you to 2 other toolkits. The toolkits will give you the PowerPoints, the long ones, basically all of them that I do in the recordings. And if you guys don't mind muting yourself, Barbara, I think if you could mute yourself for me, thank you. It will give you all this information and all these links that we're going to be going over. So you don't have to worry about like frantically taking notes and copying everything down and all that. Okay. So this toolkit here briefly has, your table of contents, and it has everything hyperlinked for all those toolkits and recordings I was talking to you about. It brings you to safer states and your state regulations. You can find out what is your state currently doing with PFAS regulation. It goes through and talks about, I just added this afternoon, the top industries for PFAS rulemaking. So we can help work on legislation together, and different organizations that have different PFAS concerns. I'm also going to be putting this link into the other toolkit, which is about talking points, 4 points of areas of concern. But I thought I'd put it in this toolkit as well. So in the PowerPoint slide, I went over the talking points that you'll want to push your municipality. So you're asking them, hey, test this drinking and wastewater, and here's why. And these are your 8 talking points. Okay, so in your presentation, that's what you need to cover. Let them know, hey, this is harmful, and this is why you need to test. So where do you begin with? How do you go about reaching out to your municipality and figuring out who is your drinking water provider? So the easiest way to do that is honestly just calling your township and or borough or what have you, and asking them. The person at the front desk that answers is not going to know. I can guarantee it. What you'll want to ask for is the public works manager or the head of public works. They will be able to tell you the provider. In a moment, we're going to go to some maps that can help you also identify your drinking water provider. So once you find out who the drinking water provider is, we'll go into a second, the types of questions that you'll need to ask to find out, are they testing for PFAS already? If so, what are their results, etc. You might have to, file a right to know request. Oftentimes those can be found actually on the municipal websites, but hopefully they'll just give you that information if you ask. So the other way that you're going to be looking for your drinking water provider and finding out if there's been some PFAS testing done, just in general through monitoring drinking water and other water sources, is through this website. We're going to go over that in just a moment. Okay, so this just talks to you about going to public works and that right to know, and that you want to make sure that the levels are below that 6 parts per trillion, or the micros per liter. And I didn't have a way, it's normally like this sort of weird U, cursive U for micro, but I didn't know how to do that on my computer right this minute. So, so step 2, once you find this out, you need to find out, well, who's going to be in charge of testing if they don't test? Who's going to be able to pull that trigger and say yes to the, if it's the municipality testing their own drinking water, which it was for me, you know, go to their lab tech and say, hey, test. Or if it's from an independent drinking water provider, how do you get them to do it? How does your municipality get them to do it? Most of those drinking water providers, third-party providers, are third-party providers for hundreds and thousands of municipalities. So how do you get that information? So in here, it's just showing you, and we'll have links to the PowerPoints and the presentations. So you're going to need to start with building your directory. And I just go over with, you know, who do you reach out to? So it's a little bit easier to just kind of move to your tables here. So for your water specialist table, you might want to get your main people would be the drinking water manager and lab tech supervisor and that public works director, manager, you know, every municipality is going to call it different. You're definitely going to want to reach out to those two. You will also need your wastewater, possibly your MS4 coordinators, compost facility if you have them, because they're kind of all tied and you might want to get them all to the table, you know. Then for your governing leaders, you'll maybe have your municipal manager, that public works director, your mayor, deputy mayor, senior project manager, just council members in general. If you have council members who are on a climate action commission or committee, pull them in. If you have members who are on anything with trying to have a healthy environment, you know, pull those members in and help get them, you know, on your side. It's important too to try and educate some people in your community about this. That way, when you do go to your big ask and your presentation during, you know, a public council meeting or, you know, town hall meeting or whatever, you have other people that are with you and agree that this needs to be done. Do you have to have that to take action? No, you don't. I went to my municipal borough meeting. I called them in advance and I said, you know, I would like to give a 10-minute presentation to the council. Could you please put me on the agenda? And they did. And so I had 10 minutes to get in there and give my presentation. And then they asked questions. They ended up saying, yes, we agree. This is a problem we weren't aware of. We want to test. They tested. They've since tested twice over the last 6 or 9 months. I forget, I lose track of time. And of course, it was higher than the levels that we wanted. Bear in mind that the importance, again, of testing more than once, because one time they tested was a high flow rate because it had just rained. So that's going to dilute any chemicals that are in there. And so we had a lower PFAS numbers, detect numbers, than we did when it was a normal time period where it wasn't raining and there was a lower flow rate. And so, like I said, PFAS are transient. They're always moving. So you can't just test once and be like, oh, we're under our borderline. We're good. We're not going to worry about it anymore. No. If you're anywhere at that 0.6 to 10, for sure, you make them test again. Because, like I said, PFAS are migratory. So step 3, once you get all this contact information, get your stakeholders down, then you're going to want to ask the following questions. Find out who decides, if those chemicals are getting tested, if it is that separate drinking water organization, or if it's your municipal lab, and who that is. And then have them test their water. Make sure you tell them up front that you want the results back, and you want to meet with them on their results. When you get those results back, if you see numbers that are above that 6, then ask them, what are they going to plan to do next? And what is their timeline? So I met with my township, and they said that they're going to be calling an engineer. So I'm going to need to follow up with them and check in on them and say, hey, how's that going? And what's happening. All right. So, and then here below, I talk about the different types of public water systems. So you have community water, non-transit, transit type water systems. Okay. So I'm going to pin going over this toolkit further. I went over it in more detail in part 1. So at the end of this, if we cover everything we need to for this part 2, I'll be happy to answer more questions about the toolkit and about this process in general that, might have been in part 1. So, but for now, I want to bounce out of this and get you over to the maps, which we do go over these maps in part 1 as well. But now we're going over them with a different focus, and it's always good to go over maps more than once. Does somebody want to give me their zip code?
12723.
Okay. 12743?
23.
23. All right, so in the upper left corner, when you load this up, you put in that zip code. Let me get that out of our way and move you guys over down here. All right, there we go. Okay, so you'll see these blue bars going across the top. In part 1, we focused a lot on the overview section, but I'm going to bring you right here to drinking water tab. So when you go to that drinking water tab, it's going to box out your smallest, it's called HUC, which is a HUC 12 hydraulic unit code. And that's your smallest watershed address. Understanding watershed addresses and watersheds do not follow your political lines, your county boundaries or township boundaries is important, because water and contaminants are going to act in a way that's reflective of the watershed, not the political boundary. And so it's important to understand that. So right here, it's already in black tabs, who provides the drinking water. So if we scroll down, you can see that there are 510 public water systems. And actually, this might be a county boundary, actually. Are you familiar with the shape of your county?
Yes, that is the county.
Okay, it is. Okay. So in the overview tab, it outlines the watershed, but in this one, it is outlining the county. That's what I was thinking. It just hit me. Okay. So do you know which one of these would be your provider? There's 510. So
Actually, I'm not relevant because I'm on a private well.
Okay, okay. So if, you know,
But
you're here with
Bethel, oh, sorry, go on.
Bethel, should we look at that?
Sure, that's a major music venue.
Okay, and it doesn't matter. Everyone's going to do this in your own area. We're just giving an example here. Okay, so Bethel Woods Center for the Arts it tells you it's serving 5,000 people for drinking water. And it's a non-transient, non-community system, and they are getting it from groundwater. Okay, so you can scroll down to where it says more detail. Click on that. And then in this more detail, it brings you to the Safe Drinking Water Information System. And it tells you that it's a private owner, groundwater, and down here, it gives you some other information. So they have this consumer confidence report. Now, for some reason, I don't know why, but today and right before this session, I tried it again. And I clicked on it and to load up the report, and it's coming up pretty much blank. And I'm like, why is this coming up blank? Where's my report? So you can, technically speaking, though, access the report by hitting this or hitting this, and it should give you a report for your community. I'm not sure why it is not doing that now, and I haven't had time to put in calls to ask, hey, what's up? So there is that. Hopefully their system is, I don't know, offline, or I have no idea why the report is blank. But that is something to look into maybe later. If anyone else can figure out what's going on with that, let me know. This, let's see, I can X that out. Okay, there's one important thing though that I did want to tell you when you do go into the report. It will look like this, and it is super, super important to put in the exact name that you retrieve over here. So if I highlight it like this, copy it, and then, whoops, I have too many of these tabs open. Okay, then I put it in, and I don't put anything in for the city and town, okay, because it won't find it. I don't know why. It's very gimmicky. Oh, my session has ended. What is that? Okay, didn't know I had an ending session. Okay, let's hold on just a second. I'm just going to start a fresh one. I had these tabs open in case things weren't buffering and loading up. I wanted to give you something to look at, you know.
I was following along with all of them for my zip code, and when I got to the step where it says you can download a report, it says access denied.
I just don't know. I don't know what's happening. It's very bizarre.
Maybe they don't want us to know.
Yeah, because I downloaded my report before. Very weird. But anyways, it's not even taking me to the same place that it took me to normally. Like, why is it taking me here? You saw where. Okay, so find your local. Let's click on that. Okay, this is where it's supposed to take you. So then you click the state. What state is that zip code in?
New York.
New York. So I'm going to click on New York. Okay, so I'm going to just copy and paste that in exactly and just hit search. Let's see what we get. Okay, so it came up. This is what should happen. However, let's click on download report. You see it right here in the right-hand side toward the middle bottom.
Yep.
And let's see if it actually gives us something we can use this time. So I'm going to hit download. Save. All right, let's see if it comes up with something. Nope, it's blank again. You can see it's not really, it's not a report. So I don't know what's happening. It's very weird. But technically speaking, that's there for you. And you can see there are a whole bunch of other resources as well in that. So let's just assume that's going to just remain problematic for us. I do want to take you guys back to that original watershed map. Whoops. Oh, this is a map where you can find your landfills. Okay, so let's go back up here, and we want to hit the overview button, which is on your far left. Okay, so in this overview button, now you want to scroll down and you want to select, it says there are 158 water bodies, 18 monitoring locations, and 2 permit discharges. So let's click those on. Monitoring stations are in purple, permit discharges are in yellow. And so we can zoom in on those, and you can click into the boxes, but you can also click here. So you can see these are healthy, good streams, what have you, and these are impaired and so forth. So let's go to where something's impaired, because maybe we'll get some information that we need. What you'll be doing, those of you who have attended part 1 can remember, when we do look at the map of possible contaminations, you'll overlay that with this watershed and see if one of those possible contamination sources are doing water discharges, and if they're in your, your watershed and all of that, and if they're near a monitoring station. So we're going to click on one of those purple dots, and it says that they are testing for a total of 76 things. And they're testing for nutrients, metals, physical, and other. You will find in the other is where PFAS are, but sometimes it will literally say PFAS. So it's saying your quality for aquatic life is good. Mercury is an issue, and so forth. You can click where it says view water body report as well. Okay, so if you clicked on the fishing and impaired, of course it had mentioned mercury earlier, but you can get some, just some more detailed information in here rather than that little clicking screen. So that wasn't coming up with anything problematic, in regards with PFAS, but you can definitely find, problems with PFAS in some of these. So it's really neat to know, hey, they are actually testing for PFAS. So this has a 628. So this might have PFAS actually in it. Let's see. Okay, it's neat. They've included pesticides. That's good, which are heavy in PFAS too, by the way. Let me go back one. Okay, I'm not seeing anything in particular, but you kind of all get the general gist and idea of how to use this. So I'm going to just open it up now in the 9 minutes we have remaining. I am willing to stay on a little bit after if you guys have further questions, comments that you want to talk about. If you want me to ensure that you get the toolkit survey, please put your name and email in the chat. You can put it just to me if you don't want everyone to know that information. And that way I can send that out to you tonight. You can complete the survey and get these toolkits. 9 minutes remaining, and I just want to open it up for any questions, things that you feel the toolkit needs to, I need to add to the toolkit. And you can just give me your overall opinion if you feel a little bit more capable, especially once you get the resources and can review them. If you feel like you would be able to go to your municipality and ask these questions and stuff.
Well, I think it's absolutely fantastic, so thorough. I'm just really grateful to you for it. I do have one question. While you were talking, I looked up I live in the Cleveland area, and so the Cleveland Water Department, I think they said they're like the 10th largest in the country. So I look, so they produce a really nice report every year. They said they have 0 PFAS detections from 280 samples from 2014 to 2021. Is that even possible that they have 0 PFAS detections?
No. So I
didn't think so.
It's not possible, because it's in 98% of every human being on the planet. It's literally raining PFAS. Now, it's very important to understand that PFAS is a part of our water cycle, right? And we're always getting new contaminations. So they're migratory. And so your concentration levels will vary. And so my municipality draws our drinking water from a creek. And depending on, how much rain there has been, the creek will be at different levels. When it was at a higher level, the rain was diluting the PFAS concentration, and it recorded lower levels of PFAS. Okay, they had 6. They found 6. When it was lower creek level, not during a rain period, the PFAS concentration recorded higher. So just bear in mind that when you do get a reported study of an amount, it is so important, at minimum, your municipality test at least quarterly. If they just test once and like, oh, it's low, and they might know, the person in the lab is going to know to test after a big rain, because they know they're going to get the lowest PFAS levels, right? So that's something to look into too, is to look at, and they should have that information, is how many cubic feet per minute was the flow rate, right? The higher the flow rate, the more diluted your PFAS are going to be. So my thing is I would go and find, what was that verbiage they used? It wasn't that it was no detect, but they used a certain verb there.
It says 0 PFAS detections, 280 samples from 2014 to 2021. So like 35 samples a year. Yes. I'd love to know when and where, and like the things that you said.
And that 0 detections, I do know that prior to I think 2020, they could not detect individual PFAS. They could only detect for fluorinated chemicals, but they couldn't tell you, like, is this a PFOA, a PFOS, or whatever. So in the last few years, we have been able to test it, at first for 6 and then 18, and now we're up to, I think, 32 or 36. And they're able to test and other things besides drinking water and soils and other things. So I know testing has gotten better. So the only thing I could think of is, number one, if their testing just wasn't accurate, or 2, they're saying that it wasn't detected, if that means they were following EPA's regulations. Because if the EPA only had a health advisory prior to 2016 of, I think it was 4,000 parts per trillion. So if they're using that, then they could, if it was under that, they'd be like, we didn't detect any. Now, if they're using 2016 to current, basically just about a month ago, it was 70 parts per trillion. And just about a month ago, the EPA moved it down to 0.004, 0.002. So we're talking parts per trillion. So it's like, you know, super small. So that's the only thing I could think of.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Tamara, jumping onto that question, I tweeted Cleveland Water while we were doing this,
Okay.
and they confirmed, you know, they said we've tested and here's our results. And they're only testing for 6 PFAS. And we know that there are a lot more PFAS than that. How many should we be expecting them to test for at this point?
Yes, at this point, 537.1 test for, I believe it is 32. I haven't looked in the last like 3 to 6 months. So, and this is, things are changing like a wild storm, but I've been so busy, I haven't had a chance to keep up with what they're doing in the lab yet. So I definitely say bare minimum the 28, and I think it might be 32 to 36 is what that particular drinking water test does. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, this is Lois. I just had a comment regarding the testing for PFAS and just what happens here. Even when we're just testing for fracking chemicals or things like that, it's very similar to what you were saying, that, you know, if they're supposed to test for, say, 15 of those chemicals, they test for 3, not the ones they're supposed to test for, and then say, oh no, we don't have any to test properly for what they're supposed to.
Lois, about the last 30 seconds of what you said, we couldn't hear you.
Oh, I just said, you know, you can't always trust your water municipality to tell you that they're testing for what they're supposed to, because if they're supposed to test for, you know, 15 or so chemicals, they'll test for 3, and those 3 weren't part of the list that they were supposed to test for. So then they can say, no, we don't have any of those chemicals. Did you hear me now? Is that better?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure now, because everyone is going to use this test for drinking water. So I have the section in here for laboratory testing, 537.1, that it does automatically test for, you know, that number, whatever it is now. I think it's 32 or 36. I do like the 2 labs that are my favorite. I have several in here, are the PACE and the Eurofins labs. They are EP or EPA certified. So that's important to use one of those labs, but there are others in here that are good as well. I did put in here this brand new method that the EPA, I don't know where it's at now, about 3 months ago or so, the EPA hadn't, what's the word? They haven't agreed that has been standardized yet. It's something I need to look into, and I'll write that down to see if this new methodology, if the EPA has adopted it for 1633 testing, because that's really good for testing other things, you know, soils, leachates and things, landfill waste and other things besides groundwater.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. So one of the questions that I'll probably be asked is, this is fantastic, by the way, thank you. I feel like I have the keys to the kingdom here, is, well, we don't have enough money to test. So how do I address that argument? Like, Carbon County is a very poor county and our municipalities are also very poor.
Yes. So in the PowerPoint part 1 slides, I give one slide is dedicated to potential sources for getting funding and grants.
Oh, great.
Cost testing for free. So all of those smaller, in fact, the smaller poor you are, more you will get the free grants for testing. Like my municipality won't, but it sounds like yours definitely will. And there's a lot by the federal and states. And I go in and I describe in there like some sources for wells as well. Let me see if I have. I don't know if I put it in here. Oh, here.
But I mean, I don't want to take time here, but so because I didn't go to the first one, will I also get access to the first one's materials as well, or?
Yeah. So
great.
yes. So I'll
Thank you.
send you out the survey so you can get this toolkit, and then you can go do the recording. I will be having these and the additional just regular residential presentations every single month.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Yes. So you can, come to them as well. But here I have for sources for cleaning up. And so I have everything in here. But yes, there's definitely funding out there for your municipalities, in addition to that unregulated contaminant $10 billion. But it's like that $10 billion sounds like a lot, but that's going to last this long because PFAS are everywhere. So you really want, that opens up for those funds in 2023. So you really want to get your municipalities to find out if they have an issue so they can be the first to apply for those grants. So just to summarize, how many of you feel like with these resources, you are going to go and visit your municipality and ask them to test? Carol is. Great. Wonderful. Does anybody else have anything they want to share with the group? Because we have a lot of other experts in here besides me. I see Tina's online with us. She can answer questions with the health impacts, and I know a lot of you know a lot of stuff, from Tracker and those of you who attended part 1. Do you think this part 2 made you feel more capable of taking action than just attending part 1? Okay. Well, that's all that I have. I want to thank you so much for coming. I'll stay on for a few minutes if people have further questions or comments. Otherwise, thank you from the bottom of my heart for attending and coming. Remember, these toolkits are live. If you want to change them or add anything, just send me the information to keep them updated and current, because there's a lot. If one out there wants to make it pretty and more user-friendly than a Google Doc, help me out, let me know too, all right?
Thank you so much. This has been so helpful.
Yeah, really good.
Thank you.
This is really great. There's so much information here.
Have a great day. Bye.
You sure? Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Tamala, am I saying your name correctly?
Tamala, yes.
Tamala, is there like a way to get in touch with you?
Yes, yes. It's move past plastic
Mhm.
at Gmail.
At Gmail, okay.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And to go to the website, it's just movepastplastic.com, and that will have on their calendar will have a bunch of information from not just the presentations that I put out, but like all these other organizations, you know, on plastics, PFAS, fracking, climate, you name it, it'll be on there. And then, of course, the PFAS presentations will be on the PFAS page as well as the calendar and other information.
Okay, thank you so much. This is terrific.
Well, thank you for coming, Jenny. Have a great rest of your day.
And you too, Tamala. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So that said, please, guys, give me some feedback. I know some of you didn't do part one, but especially those who did, now that you've done part one and part two, how do you feel? Do you feel more knowledgeable and able and willing to go to your municipality to ask them to test for PFAS?
I was wondering, if they test and they find out that it is high, are there currently ways that they can mitigate that or not?
There are, but it is expensive and it's energy intensive as well. There, we mentioned in part one of some new research and technology where they are able to knock off the carbon oxygen head, use something as simple as lime to break down one or two PFAS. So that's just at the research stage, but you know, hopefully, because this is kind of like plastic, it's moving like wildfire, and the uproar of the urgency of plastics and chemicals in them and PFAS, you know, in general, and being one of them, so much, I mean, is moving, you know, where nothing was done, nothing, even though they knew, you know, it wasn't just 3M and DuPont knew, you know, according to their own studies in 1970. But our government knew from those multiple multi-million-dollar lawsuits, which they lost because of the connection between those health harms. And they've sat on it and done nothing. Well, now we went from 4,000 parts per trillion to 70 in 2016 to now all of a sudden they're down to non-detect. So things are happening, things are moving, lots more research is being done for health impacts as well as for how do we take care of the problem. Currently, you can take care of it by collecting it with mostly granulated carbon, and then that's it though. What do you do with it once you've collected it? And it's not considered a hazardous subject. So where is it going to go? In a landfill, which is going to go in the leachate, which is going to go back to your wastewater, to your farm fields and back again. So they are not willing, though, to label it as a hazardous substance and take it and collect it and store it, because think about it, like I was thinking at first of, okay, just if you could just do it for the filters, like home filters, water filtration filters. But if they declare PFAS as, you know, this hazardous toxin that they have to collect and store, that would be everything. Your clothing, your mascara, you know, container, your boots, your coats, your pots and pans, just so much, right? So yeah, it's a bit of a fix we're in.
The testing to the undetectable level, how many different PFAS is that for?
Yes, great question. Currently, the 537.1 is for 29 different PFAS. There are some other tests that I think go up to 32 or 36. And
Does
go
sorry,
ahead.
keep going.
I was going to say the toolkit has the labs and the types of labs that you can use. Go ahead, Mandy.
I was just gonna say, I was reading that Portland, they're like touting that they tested and there's none detectable and blah, blah, blah for 6 PFAS. So that sounds very outdated. Does the first talk you gave have that list stuff? Like, where can I find the material for the recommended higher number and list of which specific PFAS?
Yes, yeah, that's in the that's in the toolkit.
Okay.
What labs to go to and what tests to use, because you're going to need different EPA and DEP certified testing for, you know, drinking water versus, you know, sludge and soil or a piece of fruit, or, you know, they have different types of tests. For some of them right now, though, it's mostly just drinking water where they can get the specific types of PFAS. Some of the other testing, they can only tell you if there's per and polyfluorinated substances, but they can't break down exactly which ones. So it just depends on what you need tested, but more and more tests are being developed and being not calibrated. That's the word I'm looking for. Basically accepted by EPA. You know, because it has to be. Well, I can't read. It's a simple word too, but it's just not in my head. It's not coming out of my head right now. It's lost in there. But anyway, so yes, it's constantly being updated. If you guys hear of a new test, like the latest test that they're looking at getting is the 1633. So I don't know if EPA has now acknowledged that as a standard, you know, testing or not, but that's one of the newer ones that they're coming out with. And more labs are coming on board too, because it's expensive.
Do you have an opinion when you were talking about mitigation, like if they do find PFAS there, that lime could help or whatnot? Do you have an opinion on carbonated, what is it, like the activated carbon filters? Like, is that true that they help, or is that greenwashing?
They can, and that is the current standard for most cleanups. But like I said, that's just collecting, and it doesn't collect the next generation or short and ultra short chain PFAS very well at all. So that's a problem, but it will collect the more of the PFOS, the legacy long chain PFAS, and it will collect a little bit of the short chain, but a lot skip through it. So the short and ultra short chain were made as replacements for those long chain because of those lawsuits, but they have found that they have their problems that are equally as bad, and you get other health issues as well as some of the same. So for example, you can find the long chain in your soils, but you find the next generation short and ultra short in your water, you know, going through water. And so some you'll find in the plant stem, some you find in the plant leaves, some you find in the blood, some you find more in your organs. So they're all bad.
Yeah,
It's just where you find them, you know?
Yeah. And did you, sorry if you already said this, but your opinion or the hierarchy on reverse osmosis as like an option or helpful or?
Yes. And I've done some research, and I didn't realize that not all reverse osmosis is the same, you know, because I just thought reverse osmosis is just simply you have a system and it's going to give you H2O and that's it. But apparently, to get to that H2O, you're running it through basically different filters, including the granulated carbon filters. So some are 2-stage, some are 3-stage. What I looked at is 6 and 7-stage filters. Some are certified, some aren't. So all that information is in the toolkit, as well as countertop filtration and everything. And then that's also going to be a part of the talk for how do you protect yourself from hazardous chemicals from plastics and PFAS. You guys feel overwhelmed? And it's okay to say yes, because
Well, yes, because it's hard to see where to go. I mean, once you have the information, what do you do with it? There's just no good solutions visible yet.
yeah, and that is definitely definitely an accurate reflection. However, I think knowledge is power. Doing this is going to shed a lot of knowledge, because if you think about it, Pennsylvania only tested 412 sites. 1/4 of those had the PFAS of 8 different types, and they were higher than they should be. Back then, they, were basing it off of the 70 parts per trillion, but now I'm sure more than 8 were found, and it's higher. And so that is impacting what the regulation is, right? For testing drinking water, biosludge, wastewater, for impacting things such as fracking waste and brine being spread on our roads. It's impacting the further production of these PFAS chemicals, and no regulation on that. The PFAS on our food packaging, in our clothing and everything. So by getting this data, just let's pretend we can't clean up any of it, which we can. We definitely can clean it up. And lots of money by the state and federal government are being set aside for testing, monitoring, cleaning up. So I don't want you to think that if your township finds out, your municipality finds that they have a problem, that there's absolutely nothing they can do. There is. It might not be ideal, but you can definitely clean it out of drinking water. Now, once you've captured it, what they're going to do with it might not be ideal or, questionable. But it is important to start getting it out of the drinking water, right? For the animals that live in it and you that drink it. And so that's a good thing. And then finding out these test results can impact and push better legislation. So yes, it is going to make a difference. It will make your community safer, and you will provide further data to push further legislation. So please, please, please move forward with this.
Yes, it's the start of a process.
Yes, it is. It is the start of a process. And like I said, come back to, if you didn't get to part 1, do part 1. And if this is your first time hearing about this, especially, oh my gosh, I could see you'd be like a deer in headlights, and you'd be like, oh my gosh, just a puddle, and I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. But hopefully going to, these sessions, looking at your toolkits, calling me, using me as a resource to help you, talking to other people, revisiting things, I hope you do feel like you do have the ability and the power to go to your municipality And I do hope they're as welcoming and receptive as mine. And I know that won't be the case. And some of you will run into problems. However, even if you feel like things could have been different, like say you do muster the courage to go to your municipality, which I really hope you do, and things are a bust for maybe things that you did or didn't do, and or your municipal and water specialists and leaders. It doesn't matter. It's a learning experience. And that knowledge is going to take you further to doing your next thing or pushing this further. It's, nothing's a failure. And I'm a person from the 12 o'clock, that's what she said, that she's new to all of this, and that she, does birding and she looks for invasives, and that's kind of where her space is. And she hasn't ever done civic action or messed with, plastics and climate change and fracking and PFAS. And that's like out of her ballpark altogether. But, I told her, I was on board with exactly her. I am her. And I've just become in the last year to do this. And so if you have space and time to become more comfortable with the topic and to just push forward, you do not have to be an expert. You just have to be a caring citizen, number one, and that's who I was when I went back to ask my municipality 9 months ago. I didn't know everything. I didn't have this toolkit made. I literally just learned about PFAS, went, oh, golly, that's a problem. I'm going to go talk to my municipality about it. And thank goodness it worked out.
Thank you.
You bet. And hopefully, you will at least help make your life PFAS and fewer chemical free, and come to the presentation that we'll be having on that, and January part 1 and 2, and revisit it, bring other people along. And yeah, so that's all I have for the evening. I really appreciate your time, everybody, and commitment to learning more, and do whatever you can do, whatever space you're in. Don't ever feel guilty for anything. All of our capacities change every day, mine included. Sometimes I'm like, I'm not doing anything. So
Thank you so
Can
much.
Can you email, I would love it if you could email me the
sure.
link to the recording for part 1.
Yep, you bet.
Thank you so much for putting this together. It's really impressive, really quite amazing.
You're welcome, Rebecca. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for taking the lead on this.
You bet, Maren. Maren, did you come
If
to part 1?
what
Did you come to part 1?
I was at a previous thing
Okay.
of yours on this. It might have been part 1, or it might have been another thing.
Okay.
And I'm often kind of multitasking.
I know you are.
But at the last time I was here, I went and looked at the Pittsburgh test and thought we gained the impression that they were testing for it, but I can't find that now. So I don't know if you.
Okay, we can.
I mean, I'm looking at their tests and I'm not seeing.
Are you talking
the categories?
Watershed
What
map?
was that?
Are you looking at the water?
Well, I have one window looking at the watershed map, and which has all kinds of tests up and down the rivers, and then I also am looking at the test on the agency website, And I'm not sure what it was that we identified as being related to PFAS, because it doesn't say PFAS or PFOA or
Yeah.
PF anything. But we, it doesn't even say what these things are. It just says a name. MFP, turbidity, TOC. Oh no, total organic carbon.
It will have some floral
And
to it or say PFAS. There are
well,
chemicals.
I think I also looked for fluoride, for just FLUO.
Yeah. I'm not sure. If you want, we can schedule a separate time to get on a Zoom and we can look at it together. If you
And in
want.
terms of the presentation, I also had some comments, but I didn't want to belabor them with everybody else,
Okay. All
taking
right.
everybody else's time.